Let's have a chat now to Simon Stevens from Addictions UK. Simon was an alcoholic and now helps others overcome their addictions. Morning, Simon.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm very well. Thanks for joining us on BBC Tees this morning. Tell me your story, Simon, and about your addiction to alcohol.
Yeah, right. So, I am still an alcoholic. It's just I choose not to drink. So I haven't drunk now for 18 years. It's a day at a time I choose not to drink. If I did drink, I would go back to that crass state that I found myself in.
18 years, though, and you say, and as I say, it's kind of a day at a time. How difficult is that as an alcoholic?
This is going to sound really silly. It's kind of doable, providing I realise who I am, that my personality traits are such, that they're not the typical personality traits, they're more atypical. I have to recognise who I am. I'm somebody who potentially, very good problem solver, but that can also mean that I worry a lot. For example, some of your listeners will recognise that, that thing in the head that says she'll say this, I'll say this, then that'll happen, then this will happen. And that constant worrying about events that have yet to pass and possibly will never pass.
Can I ask you then, Simon, what led you to becoming an alcoholic? What was your background?
I don't think background is that relevant. I think it's far more personality traits. I think it's that, for me, it was certainly that worrying aspect. The only way I could turn my head off was to have a drink. And initially, alcohol seemed very much a medicine. It was the thing that helped me get through life. It was the thing that made sort of this atypical personality traits fit in with a world that's built around typical personality traits. So it helped. But we talk about it becoming a rapacious creditor. It demands more and more from you and gives you less and less. It's a bit like going to the moneylender and getting money. Okay, in the first couple of hours, that's brilliant. But eventually, of course, you've got to get back to paying it back, and you're paying back far more than you're ever getting.
So how long was it before you realised that you were drinking to excess?
Well, I guess I started drinking when I was 14 or 15, not every day, not all the time. But by the time I was 40, it was easily a bottle of scotch a day, and it was that blackness and despair coming to, and desperation, blackness, despair, just wanting to be unconscious as rapidly as possible. I mean, I guess I knew I was drinking too much, but I kept telling people my problem was them, nagging me. My problem was I didn't have enough alcohol, because it blinds you to reality.
Yeah. And what was your journey to recovery like in that case? And how difficult was it to overcome your addiction?
I think the most difficult thing is hitting that rock bottom, getting to that place where my head was screaming at me it needed more and more alcohol. My body had got to a point where it said it simply can't process that amount of alcohol. And that's what creates that black and despair. I was fortunate that I kind of bumped into the right people, or was deliberately introduced to them. The very best person I met was the person who says, if you don't think you've got a problem, keep on doing what you're doing. Because unfortunately, my personality traits are one that sort of says, I'm quite stubborn. If somebody tells me to do a thing, I can, when I'm not feeling that good, sort of quite determinedly do the opposite.
Do you think, as a nation, we are drinking more and more?
Well, I can't speak for a whole nation. I think some of the discrepancies that you've highlighted in those stories, older people tend to be drinking more, younger people, it would appear, are drinking less. I say appear because, of course, you can't vector in the illegal production of alcohol. If you talk about being inebriated as opposed to alcohol, intoxicated, then there are so many other substances as well. So there is this big thing about we live in this really rich country. Even if you're on benefits, you're still on the top 7% of the world's wealthiest people. We should be having, everything should be brilliant. But so many of us seek to switch off part of our brain using alcohol.
Why do you think that is then?
Well, for me, it was trying to be something that I wasn't. I was trying to live in a world that's built for typical people without acknowledging, well, no, I'm atypical. My personality traits are different. And I had to learn who I was. And I had to learn as well that success is not about money. I mean, money and I were never really a problem, but that doesn't give you, it's not happiness. Happiness is accepting who you are and being comfortable with people around you. The more you strive for success, the less you show your vulnerabilities, the less people kind of like you because you become scary. But somehow we get this wrong idea, or I did anyway, that success meant doing well and being strong.
How harmful then could it be? Say if I'm having the odd drink every night, say a glass of wine with dinner or a beer with dinner.
Hmm.
How harmful can that be? Or again,
Well,
does it depend on the kind of personality traits that you have?
if you're looking at your personality and psychological dependency on alcohol, you've really got to ask yourself this question: which is in control, you or the alcohol? What I found was that once I started drinking, I couldn't guarantee I would only have one,
Right.
and the chances are I would have a lot more than that.
But could
And
that
whilst I can't say every time I drank I got into trouble, I can certainly say that virtually all the trouble I got into, being it relationship trouble or whatever, was down to alcohol.
We've all been out on a night out, though, Simon, and we've all had, way too many, and whether it be another one for the road, or whatever. We've all got to that point where we know that we're on that border of being, drunk, and we all know that we can't, we can stop, but we've all gone out and got drunk.
If you've got a choice in that,
Yeah.
well, maybe you don't have a sort of pathological dependency. You're not doing your liver any favours, obviously.
No, that's it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of binge drinking, for example. I mean, do you think people realise how harmful that can be?
No, I think a lot of people I'll be fine. It'll be somebody else it affects. The hospitals are full of people with alcohol dementias, with liver problems. A lot of illnesses don't actually, whilst alcohol is a major attributing factor, it doesn't appear in those statistics.
Simon, thank you so much for joining us this morning. That's Simon Stevens from Addictions UK in Durham. He's a recovering alcoholic and now helps others overcome their addictions. Would love to hear your thoughts on this morning. This is how you...